What is going on, everybody? Today is a big day for Nick Sands Presents because I am sitting here with Lisa Beaudoin, the just a remarkable woman who I think you all are going to come to appreciate very soon. And thank you so much for joining me today, Lisa.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I feel honored. It's a privilege to be on a podcast. It's really exciting, and your podcasts are fun, and your listeners love you. So I'm grateful.
Well, I don't know if they love me, but I think they're going to love you.
Well, let's hope. Let's hope they don't hate me.
So why don't you just give me like the quick 1 minute rundown of who you are, what you do, and who are you to the Granite State?
Yeah, so born and raised in New Hampshire, left to go to college and graduate school, came back to raise my family. Grew up in Manchester, graduate of Central, Little Pride, go Little Pride. Grew up in a really poor family. My mom had to work really hard to make sure we had food and housing, and so I value education and I value political engagement because my mom knew that the way to have power and get your voice heard was to get an education and be engaged. So I really care about making sure that the policies that we have in place, look at this, isn't that lovely? The policies that we have in place really serve working Granite Staters, serve to create, to protect the earth, and also, and my policy wheelhouse is disability policy because I have a son who is a person with Down syndrome, and there isn't a week that goes by when I do not have to observe the world treating him as though he were a second-class or third-class citizen. It's pretty painful.
So the way that I actually found you was, so we had been friends on Facebook already, but I saw an article about you in the Concord Monitor about how you were arrested at the State House with two other people.
Yeah.
During talks, or you wanted talks about Medicaid, cuts to Medicaid, and you said you weren't leaving until they talked to you, and
they didn't.
They called the police.
Yes, and they did their duty, right? We were in the Legislative Office building. It was the Budget Committee of Conference, and it was after months of sending letters to the governor, sending information to members of the New Hampshire legislature and the Senate and the House, indicating what would happen if we actually passed Medicaid monthly premiums and work requirements. The Republicans wouldn't meet with us, so we went to where they would be to make a final appeal on why this is so harmful for not just Medicaid recipients, but for the Granite State. And when they wouldn't speak to us, we decided to stay.
So just out of curiosity, in all your correspondence with them previously, did anyone respond back to you?
We did, in fact, have a meeting with the governor. And we had a meeting with the governor because after the Hands Off Medicaid rally, a group of us went into the governor's office with 1,200 paper copies of letters from Granite Staters saying that they supported no cuts to Medicaid of any kind, and a work requirement and a monthly Medicaid premium are a way to cut Medicaid, period. That's data as well as history, right? Those are the facts. So we did meet with the governor, and I have to say that it was disturbing, her lack of compassion or empathy, and that her face stayed absolutely without emotion. And we had people in that meeting who told stories about what cuts to Medicaid would do to their households here in New Hampshire. And she did not have a word to say. And it was disturbing. So we thought we would go to the next set of elected officials and appeal to the Republicans, for whom they seem hell-bent on harming Medicaid recipients, our state's most vulnerable citizens. It's unbelievable.
Can you explain when you're talking about cuts to Medicaid, can you explain what they are and how they're going to affect people?
Yeah. So there are state cuts to Medicaid, and there are also federal cuts to Medicaid. And the Hands Off Medicaid campaign was working on both levels. We really wanted Governor Ayotte to stand up and say to the Trump administration, this is so harmful for New Hampshire's healthcare system. It threatens the well-being of the disability services system. It's going to be hard on small business owners who depend on their part-time workers to get Medicaid expansion benefits. Hard-working Granite Staters. So the Medicaid work requirements were deemed unconstitutional back in 2018, 2019, and Governor Sununu ended up withdrawing that whole proposal. And the fact of the matter is, somewhere between 65 and 75% of all Medicaid recipients already work. So it is a lie. It is total bullshit to suggest that people on Medicaid don't work and don't want to work, and the people who are not working those part-time hours, those folks are either too sick and that's why they're on Medicaid, they're trying to get better from whatever ails them, or they are the caretaker of a senior citizen, which is far less expensive than having them be in a nursing home, or they are a caretaker of a person.
And it's much more than a full-time job.
And it's much more than a full-time job, as anyone who's done any caretaking knows. It's so cost effective, right, to give someone Medicaid expansion while they're taking care of their loved one aging in place, or they're caretakers of adults with significant disabilities who, again, like if you're an adult with a disability who needs caretaking at home, that's at the savings of an institution or a group home, and those range anywhere from $120,000 a year to $280,000 a year. So like, Medicaid is a bargain any way you slice it. And, you know, just because a person has Medicaid for their health care or for their long-term care, this does not mean that they are living the big life.
Right.
They are making sure that they don't become so sick that they end up in an emergency room and end up having a hospital to have yet more uncompensated care.
This is actually, so I was friends with a guy who I used to train with him at boxing, and him and his mother were both on Medicaid.
Yeah.
Medicaid. And he actually he had to turn down multiple job offerings to him because his medication that he needed to survive was like several $1,000s a month without insurance.
Yep.
And he could not take the job that would pay him more money because he could not afford to lose his Medicaid.
Right.
And so he was in this weird position where like he could not afford healthcare no matter what. No matter how great his job was, he would not be able to afford the healthcare that he needed because his medication was so expensive, and all of these things compile because now he can't get regular insurance. He'll never be able to get regular insurance. No insurance plan is going to cover him because they know for a fact they're going to be paying out of pocket several $1,000s a month just in medication, never mind doctor's visits, what have you. But then also he can't get a better job because if he does, he loses Medicaid. So he's unable to get regular health insurance. He's unable to do better for himself because he has Medicaid.
Yeah.
And so he's trapped.
And that's unfortunate because since New Hampshire passed Medicaid expansion, New Hampshire's economy has thrived, right? When Medicaid is strong, New Hampshire thrives. It makes sure that people have the basic health care that they need so that they can be the tax-paying, economically contributing citizens. I don't necessarily think that that's the only measure of being a good citizen, but since that is the rhetoric that comes out of Republican mouths, make sure that we have health care for working Granite Staters, people who aren't quite middle class, but don't get relegated to poverty wages, so you're worrying about paying the utility bill or buying food. And your friend sounds like he was not making that trade. And who wants to make the trade? Be alive?
Right. Die of starvation or die of medical necessity, basically.
That's right.
Yeah, no, it's a tough spot, and especially with the cost of regular healthcare, even with or without insurance. I mean, you're looking at there is no way to survive if you are sick without some sort of help, right? Whether that is through regular insurance or Medicaid or whatever. I mean, but even if you just look at normal healthy people, working in the state, the number one, or I believe the number one biggest beneficiary of Medicaid nationwide is Walmart. Because 75% of all of their employees require Medicaid to actually even be able to work there, which, is wrong and should be fixed.
Yep.
But the other option is that they will just go uninsured.
They will go uninsured, which will drive up uncompensated care, and it will harm access to care for all Granite Staters, including Granite Staters who can pay cash for their health care.
Right.
Right? So when healthcare systems have high uncompensated care rates, everybody suffers. It drives providers out of state. It drives hospitals to close down. It's terrible. And, if you want to stop the subsidizing of Walmart, there are far more effective ways of stopping the subsidizing of Walmart than actually harming Medicaid.
Right.
Right?
So going...
And by the way, the Republicans don't want you to know that a corporate, greedy shit show that is Walmart is actually being subsidized by government policy, and we allow it. We allow Walmart to keep people at 30 hours a week, right?
Right.
And which precludes them from having to follow the rules around providing health insurance.
Yeah, well, it also precludes the rules around all benefits and all protections that they could receive while working. So I believe they can't collect unemployment, for instance, if they're laid off. If you're a part-time employee, you get almost no protections against all of the terrible things that can happen to you as a part-time employee.
Right.
But anyways, before we get on to that, in the corporate system is horrific. I mean, I think that most people don't realize for every dollar that's spent, on a government assistance program for poor people, there's probably thousands of dollars spent in some form of corporate welfare that is then passed on to the largest corporations in the countries. In 2022, Netflix received a $20 million, I'd have to check that, I'm going to check these numbers, but $20 million tax return because they were able to, because one of the laws is that if you're paying taxes in another country, you're then allowed to use that as a way to not pay taxes in the U.S.
As a way to deduct.
Yeah, so they're deducting their taxes that they're paying in another country, and they ended up getting, I think it was $22 million back as a tax refund.
Yeah.
Which is insane. So we're subsidizing Netflix. Meanwhile, we have people who are...
Right here in New Hampshire.
We're facing the largest housing crisis in the world. This was right in the middle of COVID when everybody had lost their jobs.
Right.
Netflix is getting, $20 million or whatever, tax returns, and we're all fucking dying.
Or tax refunds.
Yeah.
And right here in New Hampshire, just to bring it right back. So we cut the millionaire tax here in New Hampshire, right? So that's the previous administration, the previous governor's administration. Sorry. So the millionaire's tax is formally known as the interest and dividends tax, and that's a tax on the profits from one's investment portfolio. It's not even a tax on the actual value of the portfolio, it's a tax on its earnings. So we've given a free pass to millionaires in New Hampshire. That just passed in the budget. Its repeal is now permanent. It'll be a heavy lift to get that interest and dividends tax, that millionaire's tax reinstated. A tax, by the way, that's been around for 100 years and nobody's complained about it. And then we've turned around and added a Medicaid monthly premium, which is a tax on poor people, expecting to generate revenues to now also give away more money to the rich in our $5,000 voucher checks to families already sending their kids to private schools. So it's not just corporate greed that is killing us. It's this strange obsession with giving taxpayer money to millionaires.
While also shaming poor people.
And shaming poor people, right? And making it even harder to rent a place and buy food. Food bank needs have gone up in 2025.
We've become the second oldest economy too.
We are
the most. So our demographic is the oldest people. We're losing. If I get these statistics wrong, please excuse me. I'm trying to remember, stick a lot of stuff in my head, but I believe we are now 50% of children raised in New Hampshire are now leaving New Hampshire when
Yes.
they are old enough to, and not coming back.
They can't come back. Nobody can buy a house
Nobody
here.
can afford to. And
If you're a young person and you've got even a little bit of college debt, you cannot have the mortgage of a college debt and the mortgage of a house, and then try to raise children. It's just not possible. Well, first of all, you'd have to be able to find a house to buy in New Hampshire. They put you in proximity to your job. And not for nothing, but most Granite Staters don't have the luxury of remote work.
Right.
Like, that's a privilege.
Would you mind moving your microphone down? Because it's rubbing your hair, and now I'm worried that the audio is getting messed up.
Okay, there we go.
So I want to go back.
Yeah,
So
go back.
when you went to the State House, did you know what was going to happen? Did you know what was going to come, or was this just?
Well, our ambition was to have a good conversation, an honest, good conversation with the Budget Committee of Conference members to let them know that thousands of Granite Staters had sent paper letters into the governor. There had been hundreds, if not a couple thousand phone calls into the governor's office on top of all of the testimony that they received around Medicaid. So, we went in earnest in our hopes that we could have a conversation and appeal to their moral compass.
And did they know you were coming, or?
They did not know we were coming.
Yeah. You just? But you knew the time of the meeting, and was it an open meeting?
It's the Budget Committee conference is a public hearing.
Okay.
So the public doesn't get to talk or testify. The members of the Committee of Conference are ironing out all of the differences in how much money they want to spend or not spend.
Right.
And we wanted to insist on a final conversation because we had been shut down so much.
Right.
And been denied meetings that, we could not abide this kind of assault on our Medicaid brothers and sisters.
Right. No, I mean, I think if they're not willing to speak with you in any other fashion, then sometimes you got to do shit to make them listen. I mean, ultimately, elected officials are there at our behest to represent us, so if they refuse to talk to you, then in some ways, it's a dereliction of duty to not listen, to not speak with your constituents, in my opinion.
Correct. And to worse, it's not only not speaking to them, it's ignoring repeated requests, polite, through the normal processes and protocols requested of voters to reach out to their elected officials. So when that goes ignored, what are we left with? We are left with, as calmly and respectfully insisting on that conversation.
Right.
And to your point about, it being incumbent upon them to meet with us, we often forget that, elected officials are not at the top of the pyramid, right? It's not like we little citizens are plebes, looking up. It's actually, the pyramid is inverted. They are public servants. They have to answer to us. We have given them our vote. That is a sacred, even if it's a secular sacred thing, that is a sacred act. I am entrusting you to represent my interests and the interests of the people in my neighborhood. And if you're not doing that, you're going to lose my vote. You're going to break that sacred pact. And if you're going to ignore that you are in service to us, we're going to show up where we know you're going to be.
Right. Well, I think it's...
And that's accountability.
Right.
That is the bottom line, right? Accountability.
I don't think that... I don't know if this is new. I guess, I've never really dealt that much with it, but... because everybody talks to me all the time. So, but it does seem like a new phenomenon where in the past you wouldn't really have politicians just refuse to speak with people, or be very choosy about who they speak with. Is that a correct assessment, or is that not how am I seeing it with rose-colored glasses?
Certain members of the federal delegation, it can be hard to secure a meeting with them. They're in and out of DC. They got a lot of people they have to answer to. They're representing the whole state. But if you're a member of the New Hampshire House, you're representing about 4,200 people. If you cannot take the time to call somebody back, text them back, or give them a quick email, or get your legislative assistant to get the meeting that they've asked for 12 times.
I mean, even if you're just getting yelled at, that's your job.
That's wrong, right? It's wrong.
It's a poorly paid job, at only $100 a year, but...
And I've been doing policy work in Concord now for about 10 years, and I have never seen it the way that it's been in the past 2 years. Just like utterly ignoring citizens who either sign in electronically or send in an email or a paper letter. It is stunning to me how much disregard there is for the will of ordinary Granite Staters.
It's also fair to say that you also represent other larger groups, right? So you were part of ABLE.
Yes.
In New Hampshire, you were part of this Medicaid's...
Hands off Medicaid.
Hands off Medicaid. So like you are representing these larger groups too. It's not as though you are just like an individual, like you're not, while you may be representing yourself too as an individual, you are representing a larger group of people who are trying to get contact with their elected officials.
Exactly. So ABLE New Hampshire is New Hampshire's disability justice nonprofit. Woohoo, independent, free of government funds of any kind, doing great work. Really proud of the time I had with them, and then also the work they're doing now. And I'm also staying in the healthcare and disability policy arenas. And we're talking about tens of thousands of Granite Staters. 80,000 people receive Medicaid in New Hampshire. I cannot say it enough. Medicaid and Medicaid expansion stabilize our economy. And if anyone tells anybody differently, they are lying. They are gaslighting and filling people with bullshit. Medicaid is a critical component of keeping New Hampshire's economy strong. And I will continue to beat that message out there. So thank you for letting me say that here.
Where do you think, let's go back to, we still haven't gotten through my initial question.
Sure.
So you show up, you're in the room, right? You're waiting in some kind of antechamber waiting for...
No, we knew that they had come out of being in caucus and that they were sitting back down at the table. There are a lot of lobbyists and interested parties monitoring those conversations and what's happening in the public hearing.
And it's just you and two other people, correct?
It's me and two other people, yes. Incredible to have brave co-conspirators, well, not co-conspirators, but comrades who are willing to throw it all down for Medicaid, right? For the tens of thousands of people who don't have the time to get to Concord on their own because they're too busy trying to pay rent and buy food, right? Or take care of their loved one. It is super lucky to be able to get to Concord.
Right.
It is super lucky to be able to access the information that it takes to be able to know you want to get to Concord.
Right.
Anyway, so we learned that they were coming out of caucus and that they were going to continue the public component of the Budget Committee of Conference. And immediately they start attacking one another because they couldn't agree on some point. And we can see that it's like a difficult, tension-filled moment for them. And we then delivered our 300 plus postcards asking for no cuts to Medicaid and a meeting, and they immediately they closed the session and left the room. And we symbolically died to represent the Granite Staters who will die when they are driven off of Medicaid by New Hampshire's cuts.
Have you been you keep saying the Republicans. Are the Democrats at all complicit in this? Are they fighting, or how are they not able to keep these things afloat?
Yeah, well, right now in New Hampshire, just the numbers are in the New Hampshire House, the New Hampshire Senate, and on the Executive Council, the Republicans have a triple majority. And in the House, they have like a 20 plus majority of Republicans over Dems. And in the House, I think it's 16 to 8 Republicans to Democrats. And the Democrats did not support cuts to Medicaid of any kind. Do the Dems make mistakes? Sure we do, right? Sure we do. There's definitely mistakes on our team, and we have to hold ourselves accountable and be better. Definitely we need to be better. But right now, unequivocally, and I'm happy to point to whoever's at fault, right? Like, because I'm representing people. I don't want to protect politicians who are doing the wrong thing for ordinary people. The fact of the matter is, the property taxes we have right now, the lack of a millionaire's tax that we have right now, and the cuts to Medicaid that we have right now are all expressly the policy agenda and the will of the New Hampshire Republican Party, period. There were no Republicans who didn't vote for the budget that we have now that contains the cuts to Medicaid.
There's two other major issues right now in New Hampshire, and that's one, the housing. Housing is a nightmare.
Housing is a nightmare.
While also we have like a massive insurge of people who are outside of our economy. So we're having a bunch of people move here from out of state who either are retired, work remotely, or like independently wealthy, so they don't need to work within the granite state. Right. They have their kind of own interests. And so with the mass exodus of young people, one of the big reasons that they're moving is because you literally can't afford, is driving the cost of housing up so much that you can't afford to live here. My house right now has almost tripled in value since I bought it, which is crazy. Because I only bought it 5 or 6 years ago. It's like unbelievable how fast it shot up.
Right. Thank God you got it when the interest rates were still good.
Yeah, I wouldn't be able to afford my house now if I tried to get it today. And I do not have a big house by any stretch of the imagination. I live in basically an apartment that I own. And so with all of that in mind, we're going to be running up against this problem where there aren't enough people to fill those lower roles, right?
Exactly.
No nurses are going to want to live here. No, all of the people who are going to serve that older demographic.
Those well-to-do folks.
Right, are leaving. Well, not even necessarily well-to-do, but people on Medicaid who can't leave the state, or people on, older people who just need assistance, right? Because there's not just a bunch of rich older people, right? There's plenty of poor older people who, can't afford to pay their property taxes on their house. They can't afford to, get medical attention. They're trying to decide between eating and pills, just like everybody else.
Absolutely.
And so we're running into this problem where there aren't going to be enough young people to prop up the economy of New Hampshire anymore. How do you think we solve that?
Oh, that's a great question. And can't answer that in totality on your podcast, Nick.
Understood.
However, one is we bring back this millionaire's tax, the interest and dividends tax. We need to find fair and appropriate revenue streams, right? That's one thing. We can't have an affordable housing fund that comes out of the New Hampshire state budget if we don't have enough revenue to feed into it. And honestly, anybody who has a problem with paying taxes on the earnings from your investment portfolio, I'd love to have a conversation with you and talk to you about your moral compass.
We can do it on this podcast if you want.
Because if your moral compass does not compel you to want to pay the millionaire's tax, then I would love to have a conversation with you about that. Anyway, moving on. We probably also need to restore the cuts to the business enterprise and the business profits taxes, right?
What are those?
Those are taxes that businesses make at certain thresholds of income and at certain rates. And in the past 6 years, and I don't have that stuff memorized.
The fact I don't even know what it is.
Right.
Just shows to show how much money I'm making.
Right. So, your business has to be doing somewhat okay. Right. And of course, the tax system is designed to get businesses, the tax loops, talking what you said earlier about Netflix, right? Like, our tax code is written to make it easy so we don't actually have to reduce the rates because there are already so many loopholes. Why do we have to actually cut the rates of taxes? Anyway, so we want to restore those things. And we want to figure out what Granite Staters think are appropriate revenue streams for Granite Staters. We cannot simply lean on liquor sales or cigarette sales. We have to figure out what are fair revenue streams. I don't want to sound like a broken record, but if we are not going to allow property taxes to tax seniors out of their homes and prevent people like my younger son from being able to come home to raise a family, then we are going to have to stabilize all this downshifting of costs to property taxes.
Well, I think that's one of the
stop it.
That's one of the things I wanted to bring up, because I think it's something that most people don't realize, is that like when you see the state cut taxes, what that means is you're going to see an increase in property taxes. So like what used to happen is the state would collect like the millionaire's tax, or they would collect the SWIFT tax for education.
Yes.
Everybody would pay into it, and then the state issues out tax funding to individual townships and stuff. What you do when you cut taxes at that level is you just downshift it to property taxes, and so property taxes have to increase, because you can only, I mean, I don't know about other states, or other towns and stuff, but I know that Derry is running on very, very thin margins. You know what I mean? We don't have
all the towns.
You know?
all I can safely say this, even without knowing the statistics, no towns are swimming in money.
Right.
Right? Everyone is looking for efficiency, and they're cutting budgets. And now school budgets are starting to be cut, right? Some people are even trying to put caps on school budgets, but you can't cap school budgets. We need more sensible and creative ways of creating a fair tax structure in New Hampshire. And exactly to your point, and I think this is one of the ways in which Dems need to do better, need to do enormously fucking better. We do not message properly that when the state cuts state level taxes, that downshifting is on property taxes, and I don't know what the language is we need to make that a simpler message, but tax cuts for the rich and for businesses will only harm our property taxes and make it harder for us to have a thriving, prosperous communities.
I can tell you from the perspective of a voter and someone who is not involved in, politics, what it feels like a lot of times, and I don't know if this is true or not, this is not an accusation or any kind, or an attack on you or anybody else, but what it feels like a lot of times is that the Democratic Party is actually beholden to some entity we don't see, some financial entity we don't see. They're donors, that we don't actually get a say. So like it feels like a lot of times, especially at the federal level, and I think that New Hampshire state and local levels deal with this more so without reaping any of the benefits of all the money that they get. But at the federal level, it feels like there's probably like 30 people who pay, millions of dollars into getting these people elected, and then now they're beholden to them, and they vote in lockstep with how they want them to vote. And that's what it feels like, and that's what it seems like to people. And I think that that's actually the messaging issue, is that you have this one thing happening at the federal level where a lot of times it feels like the Democrats at the federal level are just Republican light. And then at the lower levels, that just trickles down because that messaging, all of the marketing budget and all of the messaging is happening at that level, and it's not focused on the state level. And again, I'm not trying to, I hope that wasn't.
No, don't hope nothing. That's an honest feeling. That's important. Like we need to hear that. And so what I'll say is, I know it might feel like there's like some limited number of folks who are donors, and I don't know that one way or the other. I will look into that, right? Like I will look into that. I think the bigger problem is that Democrats of all colors stop talking to working, ordinary Granite Staters. Democrats have stopped talking to working people and stopped listening to the stories of what it's like, what it's truly like having to decide between buying food and paying for a utility bill.
Right.
Right? And I listen to those stories.
Right.
I know what it's like when you get denied the redetermination on your Medicaid application, because I've heard from hundreds of families about this.
Right.
Families of little ones and big ones with disabilities for whom they are drowning in Medicaid paperwork, and now they're going to drown more in it when we go from 1 redetermination a year to 2. And so, Democrats need to listen to the voters who they're told are supposedly on their policy team, right? Like, Democrats legitimately care about programs that lift up the poor and low-wage earners, right? Like, definitely the policies do that. But if you can't sit down and have a conversation and authentically relate and listen carefully to citizens, that's why we are in the situation we're in right now. We've lost those voters.
It makes me think of, so one of the things that I really like about you is that you are very passionate about Medicare and Medicaid, and you're also living it, right, because of your son. I think that a lot of times the message is lost. Have you ever seen that thing where Bill Gates tried to guess the prices of ordinary items?
A long time ago,
so
I did see
he
it,
guessed
yeah.
like a box of cereal was like $30. Like, he has no idea, or like a box of cereal is $1. And so that's what it feels like a lot of times, is we're being represented by these people who can't understand what it means to not be able to find an apartment because they've never had a hard time finding an apartment,
Yeah.
I mean, I remember when we were looking for an apartment, my last apartment before I bought my house, we got to the point where we were offering extra months of payments in cash that would not be seen because we could not get accepted. We spent more money in just application fees. We spent hundreds of dollars just in $50 application fees to be denied.
Right.
And so I got to the point where we were essentially trying to bribe our way into these apartments.
New Hampshire.
And if you've never had to do that, I can see why you don't understand why that is necessary. But that's sort of where we're at as a society at this point.
Yeah, I've been working in the nonprofit sector my adult life, except for when I was running an organic farm. and that was why I had to go into the nonprofit sector. So, nonprofits can't pay into 401ks most of the time, and they lean into Medicaid expansion and the Affordable Care Act, the marketplace. And I can tell you, I don't think I'm ever going to be able to afford owning a home in New Hampshire again. Single people can't own homes in New Hampshire anymore if you are an ordinary wage earner.
Right.
And we need representation in this state by folks who understand what that's like.
Completely agree.
Like, if you can't understand why passing New Hampshire just did this a couple weeks ago, Kelly Ayotte signed it into law, further eroding tenant rights away, right? So now
Tenants have rights?
You have, yeah. No, they have the right to try to bribe with cash to get a place, because there's no staff to watch out for that sort of stuff. But now there's no cause termination of tenancy, as if tenants weren't already, crying at night waiting for a response to their application for an apartment.
Right.
Like, how would you, in a housing crisis, like, what kind of mental disconnect do you have if during a housing crisis you make it easier for landlords to displace tenants for people who are already struggling with getting housing? Do you want to put a burden on the sheriff's departments, who have to execute, by the way, the eviction notices, right? And that's an unfunded mandate. Let's just give the sheriffs more work to do.
Well, then you're also looking at, increased homeless population.
Increased population.
Which leads to other,
How do children learn when they're living in a car or at a campground?
I think most people would be shocked to learn how many homeless children there are in New Hampshire. I know just at, this number is a few years old, and I've said it a bunch of times on this podcast, but I know a few years ago that there were 200 homeless students at Pinkerton Academy in Derry.
Yeah.
So there were 200 kids living in Derry. There's a couple of homeless villages around Derry. There were 200 children living in either those or like on a friend's apartment or like on a friend's couch.
On a sofa,
You know, in a camper. There were a couple we knew about. So
I think that children actually represent the largest increase in numbers of people who are unhoused.
they do.
Children represent the growing population of people without homes.
Children are actually have a higher rate of poverty in the U.S. than adults. So it's almost, I think the adult population that falls under the poverty limit, I'm not even going to guess the number, but it's higher than the adult population.
Right.
Because children fall in this weird space where if you're not 18, you can't apply for benefits. So if you don't have a parent who is willing to do that for you, then you just go without.
Yeah.
So like if your parent, for instance, gets their food stamps and then just uses them all for themselves, there's nothing you as a child can do about it.
Right.
You can't apply for your own benefits. You could try to emancipate yourself, I guess, but imagine trying to do that while you're 15 years old.
This is in addition to that, right? So in addition to that, children also don't have a choice about going to school.
Right.
Children have to go to school, and the Free Staters who have taken over the Republican Party in New Hampshire, they have decided to say no to creating free lunch for kids. Kids don't have a choice. They must go to school. So kids are locked up at, I say that with love and affection. Kids are mandated, in highbrow talk, kids are mandated to be at school for 8 hours a day. Kids are required to be there, and it's good for them. Our public schools are part of the pathway out of poverty. But the Republicans in New Hampshire decided to continue giving millionaires a tax break and to say no to giving school children free lunches. Now, in addition to children who don't have a home having a hard time learning, the data is super duper clear. Children who are hungry can't learn. So what's it cost? What's a lunch cost?
It's crazy. The lunch thing, I mean, if it was up to me, what's it going to cost? 20, it wouldn't even break 6 digits to feed every child
It is. So
I would say feed them breakfast and lunch. Why are we, how much is an egg, you know?
Right. So let's bring it back to this. Our elected officials, their votes, really simple. It represents their values. It represents what they actually care about.
See, I would actually press back against that because I think that most, I've spoken with plenty of Republicans and Democrats on both, and I think that all of them are actually they're good people. I feel like a lot of times they're voting for things that don't actually align with their values. I don't think if you were to ask them, hey, if there was a hungry kid, would you give him a sandwich? They would say no.
Right, but
I just don't understand where that breaks. I do think that the people that are making the votes are good people, but it's almost like it gets to the point where it's so in the cloud and everybody's so tribal and everything is so disconnected that you're voting for this thing that you actually don't even agree with, but you're doing it because you're just, I don't know. I
don't know.
It's very weird to me.
If I were part of a political party that told me that I had to vote against free lunch for all school children and then turn around and give $5,000 checks to millionaires who are already sending their kids to private schools, I couldn't abide that. I could make a decision because how you vote is you can be a good person and have a good heart, but if your votes don't reflect your commitment to your neighbors,
right,
and to the well-being of the larger Granite State, then your integrity is a big giant question mark.
Are these things tied? I understand what you're saying, and I'm not
and you can be a good person one-on-one with someone, but talking about being a good person and sounding like a good person is different from doing the things that reflect that your behavior is in line with your good values.
Right.
Right? So, I'll just stop right there because I got a string of expletives going through my mind right now.
No, I understand what you're saying. It's weird to me that it's individually people are good, but then once you get up into the mechanisms of humanity, you become this other person who is making these dollar and cents decisions that are tied to people's lives, and you're not correlating the fact that, like, you know, if this guy has to pay a 10% tax on his Walmart distribution he gets 4 times a year, that or his dividend, you know what I mean? He gets
Right.
like the dividend from the S&P 4 times a year, and he's got to pay 10% on it, and that'll pay for kids' food.
Yeah.
Like, it just seems like, it's like, I don't understand where that break happens.
I don't either, and I will say this. I think New Hampshire has some really great advantages, right? Having a 400-member House really does afford our reps to relate to people, right? We are a compact state. The legislative office building in the State House, those are the people's houses.
Right.
Right? And you can walk into the State House, you can walk into the governor's office, you can walk into the legislative office building and speak to the administrators who do the paperwork for our members of the New Hampshire House and Senate. So, like, we are so lucky to have such an accessible legislature, and so lots of people do tell their stories. And those of us who try to tell the stories for the folks who can't make it to Concord because, like, they've got 2 jobs and a couple of kids and trying to, like, make sure that dinner's cooked, right? We really want folks to figure out in their own heads how to make sure that their votes on things like free lunch are in alignment with the values that they actually talk about.
Right. Well, I think one of the other problems we have as a state, because I've never looked at it like that, where, like, it is very accessible because each rep is only representing not that many people, a couple thousand people, right?
Right.
I've always looked at it the opposite way, like, because of so many people, we can only afford to pay $100 a year, and so all you can have in as elected officials are either wealthy people or very old people who are, you know, obviously going to vote in their best interest, but are not necessarily going to vote in the best interest of, you know, younger families or do the things that need to be done to make sure that we do have young people able to live and move here.
Totally. And there are people way smarter than me who have got a list of answers to this question around how do we democratize our 400-member legislature so that there's equal access across the so, like, anybody of any age can run if you know, if they feel inspired to and feel like they can represent their community.
Because even with my I mean, I have a super flexible job. I mean, it's Monday morning, I'm leaving for vacation tomorrow, and I'm talking with you at 10 a.m., you know, so, like, I have a pretty sweet gig, and even I could not afford or be able to manage the time of doing that.
So definitely New Hampshire does need to figure this out, and I am definitely not the person to do that with you. But I definitely understand that, like, I'm a single woman, right? I work in the nonprofit sector. I have aspirations to run for office, and when I do the math on the back of the napkin, I don't know how I'll be able to pay for electricity and run for office, because running for office means you have to be out there pounding the pavement day after day, meeting with real Granite Staters, not just meeting with business leaders, not just meeting with unions, not just meeting with the fancy schmancy folks in different sectors. You have to actually get out there and listen to what voters have to say.
Right.
And, you know, we're talking 60 hours a week if you want to run a serious campaign. So
Well, 60 hours a week to run the campaign, and then 60 hours a week to do the work.
Yeah, to do the work. Yeah. And New Hampshire has a lot of priorities, right? Like, we have to stabilize our public education system. We have to build more affordable housing. We need to have a fair tax structure. We need to make sure we are finding channels, proactive channels, to get young people to come back.
We got to legalize weed.
Among many other things. And so, you know, I'm not like, getting back to, you know, the disconnect that some elected officials have from being good people to having good votes. You know, having priorities, policy priorities, that's a tough, delicate balancing act, right? And I don't want to pretend that fixing the things that we need to address is easy, or that it can be fixed inside of 3 months, right? Like, it's a process, and New Hampshire is a purple state, and we need to continue staying in the conversation. We need to be in conversations with our neighbors all of the time and building, like, if we want to stop division at the New Hampshire State House, we have to be modeling that we are willing to be in that courageous conversation time and again, talking about what matters to our neighbors. Always talking about what matters to our neighbors and what matters to our local business owners. I don't want to preclude that we need to be continuously supporting having a strong foundation for New Hampshire's economy to strive. But honestly, like, protecting Medicaid, feeding children, making sure our seniors don't get displaced from their homes, like, those have to remain in the top priorities, because we are bad humans if we're not paying attention to those folks.
What else is there at that point?
Right.
Like, what is the point of government? The way I always think about it is, like, if someone robbed my house, if I, like, was at home and someone broke into my house and then they ran off, I probably wouldn't even call the cops, you know?
Right.
But if you're an older person or you're a child or you're, you know what I mean? Like, that's where the system is set up to protect.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily set up to protect me, who is a healthy individual who can work for himself and do all these things. It's set up to protect the people who can't do all the things I can do. And that's what it should be there for.
Right.
To give everybody those people who can't do those things the same opportunities that I have.
Right. And, you know, if we aren't taking care of the least among us and promoting the common good for all, then honestly, we will be undercutting New Hampshire's economy.
Right.
Right. Like, and we need to continue to connect those dots. Because going back to something you said earlier, we are an aging state. We don't have enough LNAs, who are the assistants at nursing homes. We don't have enough janitors at nursing homes and at hospitals. We are facing a nursing shortage. We don't have enough direct support professionals for students with disabilities in our public schools. We don't have a large number of low-wage earners. We don't have enough of them in New Hampshire now, and we are making it ever harder to get the folks the homes and the wages that they need to be able to actually deliver the services to the people who can afford to have those services.
Right. It is. It's a weird situation because we're in sort of weird times, right? It's like the economic disparity in the country has never been worse. So it's worse now than it was during the Great Depression, with like the top 1% owning like 80% of the wealth, and the bottom 80% of the wealth of the people fighting over 7% of the wealth, or 8% of the wealth.
It's the Gilded Age on steroids.
It is. It's somehow worse than the Gilded Age, except our Gilded Age robber barons aren't smart enough to realize what's happening, and they're going to end up getting killed.
Well, and they aren't. And they aren't big philanthropists, because they're now stripping the arts of money.
Right. So what people don't realize about the Gilded Age is, like, all of those guys, the Rockefellers and the Carnegies and all those guys got together and they were like, look, we can either release a bunch of this money that we've collected and we will still live better than 99% of everybody else.
Yep.
And they will still live in poverty, but they won't die. And we can do that and they won't fucking hate us.
Yeah.
And they won't eventually come and murder us.
Yeah.
But I don't think that our modern day robber barons are smart enough to realize that, because they keep doing all of the things. They keep dismantling all of the things that the old robber barons did to make sure that that didn't happen.
I hate to say this, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but what strikes me is, like, maybe they've done the math and they've figured out how many of us they can actually kill off and safely not have the masses come after them. I don't know. I mean, I don't truly believe that in any way, but it just points to their illogic.
Yeah.
Like how have they figured out that this is reasonable or safe?
Well, we have a bigger problem on the horizon, and I think people have talked about it and they maybe don't realize how big of a problem it's going to be. I already know 4 people who have lost their very good paying jobs, middle management level, 6, 7 figures, not 7 figures a year, but 6 figures a year, to AI.
Oh, that's a coming crisis.
So I know people who were, executives and stuff, middle management on big companies, who just were replaced and cut out, and so now they are, 6 paychecks away from being homeless.
Yeah.
You have all of these situations where people are, jobs are becoming scarcer and scarcer and scarcer. They're being replaced with AI, and it hasn't really kicked up yet, but it's going to.
It's going to,
And what do we do at that point where you don't have any way to buy goods, and then you also need to consume to continue like this sort of American project that we're doing?
One can't help but wonder if, I keep thinking about the phrase neo-feudal. Like, are we headed toward a neo-feudalist time where almost all of the wealth, as you described, is concentrated at the top and the rest of us are just scrounging for scraps, right? And how many decades or hundreds of years will it take for us to break that cycle if we continue structurally supporting this kind of attack on our economy and on our communities, essentially, right? Like, we can talk about economy, but like, honestly, this is an attack on communities, on people.
Yeah, no, this is
people.
It's a big deal.
Yeah.
This thing coming up, and then where you're seeing things. I mean, they're already trying to make it so that states can't regulate it on their own. They passed a bill at the federal level that will make it so states can't independently regulate AI usage in their state. So yeah, I mean, we got very weird, scary times on the horizon.
Scary times.
And they keep getting weirder. And it's like, what is the future going to look like? Because at some point, it's like, it feels like all of the people who studied STEM should have probably spent some more time in the humanities section of their college, because it's like you're making these things that, like, what is the point of technology if it doesn't make humanity better?
Right.
If it just makes one guy a bunch of more numbers on the screen, but everybody else is miserable, like, where is the trade-off? Like, how do we go forward after that, I guess, is the question. And you don't need to answer. It's just now I'm just talking.
And I appreciate you bring this into the conversation. And I don't have enough data on AI, but I find it, it's convenient that the current administration at the federal level is all about states' rights, states' rights, states' rights, and let's have a free and independent federal branch of government to do basically whatever it wants, untethered to anything based in reality most of the time. But when it's convenient, they deny states the right to regulate their own economies. So, it's good,
I mean, if Marjorie Taylor Greene is against it, you have to start wondering, like, what is going on,
Well, the political spectrum is not actually a line, it's a circle, and sometimes you're so far left or so far right that you actually touch on the other side. It is very strange times. Very strange times.
How long have we been going for? 58 minutes, wow.
Wow, that's incredible. Hey, Nick,
yes.
I want to leave a word with you and with listeners. We somehow have stopped talking about love. And love is what ties us to our families. It's what ties us to our neighbors. It's what ties us to our country. It's what ties me to the Granite State. And I think that we need to find ways to insert the concept of love back into political discourse. Like, where's our integrity? Where's our love? How are our morals in alignment with the policies we're passing? Because if we're passing policies that we would not pass on our poorest loved ones, we're missing the mark.
Right.
We're super missing the mark. And I think that we need to find a way to let love guide decision making. And I don't want to get too foo-foo, because I'm not Marianne Williamson, and I'm not the Pope. But I do really think that at the end of our lives, we are not worrying about what's in our bank accounts, right? When we are on our deathbed.
Unless you're poor. Then you're like, I don't really need to die. It's just I can't afford my insulin.
Right. We're thinking about our loved ones, and we are hopefully surrounded by love. And so I think that we need to remember that we should be doing what we're doing because we love ourselves and we love one another.
Right. Well, on that note, I think that's a really good point. And I think that there's a lot of talk about how like the government should run as a business, right? So like, but like the government isn't a business. The government should not run as a business. It should run as a service.
It's a service.
It's a service. It's not there is no, I mean, you got to balance the book somewhat. Like you can't have more money going out than coming in, but there is no money coming in. It's just taxes. And so like you have to stop looking at it like, you should always look at your taxation as like, what do I get for my taxes? And if like the thing that you get is not is not worth the value that you're paying for it, then why are we doing it, I guess is the thing.
Yeah.
And so like, I would much rather my money go toward feeding kids who are hungry than to, subsidizing Raytheon anymore.
Yeah, let's not subsidize Raytheon. Let's not subsidize Walmart. Let's not subsidize millionaires already sending their kids to private schools with $5,000 checks out of New Hampshire's general funds.
Right.
Like no and no and fucking no. No. Right? That is.
Wait, we were going to end on love, so let's not.
Yes.
All right, guys. Well,
thank you.
Where can people find you?
Thank you. Lisa at disability-strategies.com is my email address. And Strategies for Disability Equity is my website.
Anything big coming up that you're planning? Any big marches or anything?
To continue making good
people
trouble.
You need bodies for?
To continue, always. Yes, we're thank you for asking, Nick. Resist Medicaid Cuts work group has its first meeting the first week in September. Find me on Facebook to get details about coming to the Resist Medicaid Cuts work group.
Awesome.
Thank
Guys,
you.
you heard it here. Go check that out. Thank you so much for watching. Mwah! Bye.
Bye. Thanks.